Hey, shalom, shalom. All right, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, all glory and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakodash. Also, I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that do rule and teach well. And as always, peace, love, and many blessings unto the elect of Israel, scattered around the four corners of the earth, giving all diligence to make their calling of election sure, returning back to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai in all sincerity and truth. Okay, and to you I say shalom. This is your brother Atazawam from the GMS Atlanta camp, back through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai with another lesson. Lord willing, I do hope and pray that it's edifying. Okay, so I got this picture up here, um, and this picture is like an illustration of a dream that I had years ago. I mean, this dream was well over 10 years ago, and I've told brothers about it personally, but I've never actually spoken on this dream on video, and the spirit has just really been on me lately, to speak on it. And it was a very spiritual dream. Nonetheless, this is, I say this dream, I had this dream back in maybe 2012, 2011, somewhere around there. Um, but, like I said, it was a very spiritual dream, and it really, it gave me a visual or an appreciation on how precious, the brotherhood is. Okay. Because in the dream, all these stones that you see in this temple, it represented the brothers. Okay, and I'm gonna describe this dream, and I'm gonna bring out some precepts, and Lord willing, it's an edifying lesson. And the point that I want to hit upon is, how precious, the brotherhood is in the eyes of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, which is why you have to honor the brotherhood. You have to honor brothers. You have to respect brothers. Okay, you gotta operate in the spirit of knowing that you are among rare spirited individuals, and show appreciation and respect when it comes down to the treatment and the way that things are being carried out in the brotherhood. Okay, but in the dream, um, it was similar to this, but we was in like it was a bunch of brothers in here. Imagine this picture before you, but it's a whole bunch of brothers. Okay, it's brothers in here. Okay, and in the middle of this water, there was a waterfall, and in the middle of the water, it was like a legend, like a golden legend. Okay, and it had, all these stones that you see. They was all over the temple. Okay, and even in the water. Okay, there were stones all the way in the bottom of the water. Okay, and in the legend that was in the middle of the water, certain stones fit. Okay, it had like different grooves, or the imprint of certain stones was in the legend, and you would have to find the stones and place it in the legend, right? So it was brothers all in the temple, standing everywhere. It was brothers on top of this waterfall, on top, around the tops of it, and brothers kept jumping into the water, diving into the water, and coming up with different stones. And as they would grab a stone, they would then take it to the legend that was in the middle of the water and try to see if it would fit. And if it didn't fit, they would put it back in the water and then climb all the way back to the top and then jump again. Okay? And Elder Manatazak, the bishop up in Connecticut, he was actually standing on top of this golden legend. Okay? And he kept telling brothers, keep diving, keep jumping, because when we find all of the right stones, it's going to move. Like on some Indiana Jones type of shit. You got to you got to find the right shaped stones, and you put them in place. And when you get all of them in place, he said, as soon as we find all the right ones, is going to change. And you just had a bunch of brothers that just kept jumping in the water and bringing out these stones and putting them on the legend. And certain ones fit and certain ones didn't. But you see how beautiful this image is, and you see all the different various types of stones. Some are bigger, some are smaller, different colors, different shapes and sizes. And it was actually a golden temple um, inside this cave, you know, and that represented the sanctuary of the Most High. The jewels represented the brothers, the elect, which are Israelites, and the waters represented this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. okay, which is all written of in the scriptures, okay, because the third temple in the scriptures is with men. That's in the book of Ezekiel. It said the flock of my pasture are men. Okay, so that temple, the scripture says that the temple of God is with men. That's in the book of Revelations. So that golden temple represented the house of David, or the throne of David, and the men that were inside of this cave or this temple represented the prophets. Okay, the prophets, that the water represented the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and the jewels that they were jumping in the water represented the elect, which is why certain stones only fit and certain other stones didn't fit. Okay, so that's very spiritual, in my assessment, and it's a dream that I've always held near and dear to me, which is why I I'm very passionate about how I treat brothers and how brothers are treated. You know, any brothers that know me or been around me for some time knows that I'm very, very big on how you treat the brothers. You know, how you go about handling brothers, how you go about what's your outlook on brothers. You know, having honor and respect. Among the brotherhood. Being on point and taking accountability. Not being a BS artist. But being sincere and genuine when it come down to this truth, because these are precious stones and members of brothers. And lately I've been in that spirit of just watching, and just appreciating the company of, brothers, and the grace that the Lord has bestowed upon us in these times to be in each other's company. Okay? Because there are certain people in the world who haven't been graced to be among certain men, but we've been around top spirited guys, starting from the apostles on down. We've, been amongst them, and we've learned at their footstool, and we've, pretty much came under, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, this yoke, and we've been introduced to some very, very great guys, which is why I see why in the dream the best way to represent these men were jewels. Okay, imagine if you were in the presence of all kind of precious stones and jewels that's very rare. You wouldn't just look at it or treat it as if it's a moissanite or sterling silver or nothing like that. You're gonna honor it. You're gonna be wild. You're gonna appreciate it. You're gonna know that it's rare, and that's the same way that the Spirit has been on me to view the brotherhood, and also for brothers who take it for granted, to get off that BS. Brothers that be on that BS, in the camp and saying shit, you got to get off of that shit, man, because Apostle Gabar told me years ago. He said, man, you got to be very careful with how you treat brothers, because you never know how precious that brother is in the eyes of the Lord. So that has always stuck with me, from the moment that the elder apostle Gabar told me that up until now. And I try my best to, extend that appreciation whenever I'm in the midst of brothers. But this is the book of Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5. All right, it says, now therefore, if ye will obey my voice and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And there is a voice that's going out in these latter times, this voice of truth, and the prophets are the ones who've been given that inspiration to speak that voice in these times. And there are certain people who are obedient to that voice, which is why it says, if you obey my voice, right? And those that are obedient to that voice, the Lord is likening them unto a peculiar treasure. Okay, now let's get that word. All right, the Hebrew word is sagala, right? And it says possession, value, property, treasure, special, proper good, or jewel. Another way you say jewel in the Hebrew is kalaya. Okay? It says what? Wealth, which is why the scripture says that thou art rich. Okay? So that's the brothers that you see that are obedient to the voice and the way and is trying their best to do the things that the Lord is pleased in and required. You gotta remember, this is valued property. This is peculiar treasure to the Lord. And when you are in the presence of another man's treasure, you want to make sure that you are a good secretary, that you taking care of that treasure, you know, so that the owner of that treasure will come back and everything will be intact. You don't want to have his, his property, his valued property just anywhere, doing anything. Okay? So the Lord likened the children of Israel as a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, which is why we always push that, man. We are over these other nations. Okay? There's nothing proud about that. There's nothing, cocky, but it's just simply the truth, man. Okay? The abilities that the Lord gave us, we far exceed these other people. We're the best singers, dancers, creators, okay, innovators, we're the cooks, okay, whatever you can think of, man. The Israelites are the best. Even in captivity, we're still better than these other nations. Okay? Verse 6, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Yeah, we're to be holy. Just as this looks holy. This doesn't look like just something that you would run across, which is why it was in a secret low place. It was in a secret location. In the dream, it wasn't just out in the middle of the public. It was like a hidden temple. Okay, in like a cave, and it was like jewels all over the place, man, with crystal water. Okay, that word holy means what? Separate. So this temple, everybody couldn't just come and find out where this temple was at. This was hidden, which is the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The scriptures say, he that abideth in the secret place of the Most High. The secret place of the Most High is this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Okay? So that's how the dream was, which makes perfect sense. To be hidden and not among all the other nations, but it was secluded. And that's why the scriptures say that we'll be a peculiar treasure and a holy nation. Okay? Let's get back to the scriptures. All right, it says, a holy nation, these are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. All right, and this is Moses, so let me get another scripture. Okay. This is the book of Malachi 3, and I'm going to read verse 16. They that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. Okay? Those that fear the Lord are the Israelites. Okay? The obedient ones are the ones who hearken. Okay? And that book of remembrance is what? The Bible, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That we might read and learn of the ways of the Lord and apply it in our life. And it said they thought upon his name. That's another cut for the IUIC, which we've been cutting them on that for years. They still can't get it because you know why. Okay? But verse 17, here's the point. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels. Okay? Scripture says when I make up my jewels. All right? I believe that word is kalaya, but let's see. Oh, that word there is sagala as well. Okay? It says, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. So the Lord is going to spare those who are hearkening, those who are of the elect. They'll be spared in a time of trouble, in which we're in Jacob's trouble. Okay? We've been saying it all year and last year. This is Jacob's trouble, man. Okay? It's just levels to it. It's going to increase. Okay? Until the whole house of Jacob is fully consumed with this trouble. Okay? But the Lord is going to spare the faithful. The Lord is going to spare the righteous. Okay? Of that seed. Okay? And bring them into his treasure chest. Okay? In a safe place. All right? Psalms 135 and 4. For the Lord has chosen Jacob for himself, Israel for his own special treasure. Okay? So Israel is the treasure. All right? See all these different stones, precious stones and emeralds and rubies and sapphires and crystals, and you know, that's why you even have the stones on the ephod. And when you read this in the book of Revelation 21, it was describing the kingdom having chrysoprases and all of that. You know, that's Israel. The jewels represent Israel. Now there's actually going to be precious stones and jewels actually physically in the kingdom of heaven, because you're going to have the stones on the gates, okay, on each side. So it's all spiritual, okay? And that's why the brothers represent these precious stones and jewels. And the Lord requires us to treat it as such. Now, there are certain methods of, purging that you have to do to jewelry. You got to cleanse it, So sometimes the Lord is, firm and austere with the jewels, okay? Have you ever seen how, metal, not metal, but these different stones are shaped and shined? It's a rigorous process, but it's very careful. It's very careful. They don't just handle it like any, piece of plastic, man. But there is a refining process that goes with jewelry to make it shine, to make it perfect. And that's what happens with the elect. But it's not being abused. It's not being disrespected. It's just being purified. Okay? So yes, you have to, get on brothers, and you have to tighten up certain things, or, admonish, different things of that level. But all in all, the treatment that you give towards brothers, it got to be, very careful, man. Okay? You got to be very careful. Things you say, you can be murmuring, you can be having, um, talking shit about brothers for no reason, envying, and being malicious, strife, bearing hatred in your heart, letting sun go down on your wrath. You could be doing things with brothers, and it could be pissing the Lord off. So that's why you have to look at it as it being the treasure of the Lord, and how would you want somebody to handle your treasure? Isaiah 62, I'm going to start at the top. For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace, and for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until the righteous thereof go forth as brightness, and the salvation thereof as a lamp that burneth. And the Gentiles shall see thy righteousness, and all thy kings, in all kings thy glory. And thou shalt be called a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. Thou shalt also be a crown of glory in the hand of the Lord, a royal diadem in the hand of the Most High. Okay? Now let's get that word diadem. And notice it said a crown of glory. Still likening Israel into what? Gold and jewelry, jewels. Okay? Let's see what a diadem is. Alright. Taza Lop. Let me see. Tazanop, if I'm not mistaken. Salaki if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Say headdress, a diadem, hood, mitre, headdress, piece of cloth. Okay? So that's a glorious, a mitre, basically. That's a glorious apparel, though. Okay? That's glorious apparel. I think it's Tazanop. I'll be getting that one right there confused, so Salaki, but I think it's Tazanop. All right, but yeah, man, the Lord described Israel as a royal diadem, um, or a headdress, a mitre, crown of glory. So it's a beautiful thing, to be likened unto that when you read the scriptures. All right, that's last scripture, 1 Peter 2:17. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king. Okay? And that's just what's been in my heart lately, concerning the brothers. The Lord bless you to be among, you know, wise men and wise counsel, and brothers are charitable and you know respectful, very intelligent when it comes down to the scriptures and the prophecies. You get a chance to see young men come into camps and grow, and you see the fear of the Lord grow, and you get to see faith on a whole nother level. You get to see, you know, the development stages of young men, and you get an opportunity to just be amongst the building of the third temple, and it's to be appreciated. You know, so I just wanted to put that dream on wax because, like I said, I had this years ago. I spoke to a couple of brothers about it, on several occasions because it's been one of my most vivid dreams and one of my most special dreams that the Lord gave me, and the Spirit just moved on me to speak on it, you know, concerning the times that we in. So, Lord willing, that was an edifying lesson. I'm gonna go ahead and close it out, giving our praises once again to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.